claimed it their own. In addition, even if we look in modern times today, we can still see that there are many signs of Europeans oppressing African Americans. As a result, many African Americans have become comfortable in their place in society and therefore refuse to take history in Black Athena and make it their own and to try to claim what was theirs. So they are still working under the oppressed field. So I think that the comparison was very evident in both stories, and I feel that it is important that African Americans not only read these historical stories, but take from them good lessons so that they can change what has been done and move out of the oppressed field and stop making Europeans the oppressors. Thank you.
Hi, I am Georgianne, and I am one of the delegates for Georgianne Nation 09, and I'll be comparing Video Hoes and Divas. Video Hoes and Divas, the oppressed version of Video Hoes and Divas. The oppressed of Video Hoes, first to start off, is you know, the females. A lot of females have been oppressed by the oppressor, which is us now. First it was the white man first it was the white man being the oppressor, oppressing us as black African Americans all as one. But and now since the white man has done his job, he's put it on a lot of the men to call our females hoes, and for the females to call themselves divas instead of the actual name. So it kind of turns it around to say that we're the oppressors now, and the ladies who they call hoes are the ladies who are being oppressed. So that's how you know, hoes compare and blend in with the oppressed and the oppressor. Back to divas, a lot of our sisters are not calling each other are not going by the original birth original birth names that their mother gave them, ranging back from the slave generation. All the work that we put in from slave generations all up to now, it seems like a lot of us been living up to it, but at the same time we have a lot more work to do, especially trying to keep each other from being within the oppressed and the oppressor mode, especially with us as blacks all together, instead of being against one another, or some against and some not, or calling each other out of each other's name, which leads right back to the oppressed and the oppressor. We should just definitely combine and come together so we can not be being oppressed by each other and by the oppressor, which is us now. So that's the comparison within Deathbed, Divas, and Hoes, the oppressor.
We're down on this side of the table. We were just talking about, if people leave their oppressor, are they trusting themselves that things will get better? This all comes back to slavery and Reconstruction, and how although slavery was over and slaves were able to leave their masters, many were forced to stay out of fear, and many stayed by choice. And slaves are the oppressed people, and the masters were the oppressors. And this just talks about people not trusting themselves in terms of, well, I understand this is Reconstruction time, and it's time for me to start a new life, but many people were fearful of starting new lives. And I just think that at some point in time when you are oppressed, you must step up to the plate, and you must, figure out how can I better myself, and how can I detach myself away from the oppressor.
Right, Tony, I'm glad you said that. Because in my article, the Wabi, it talks about, like Chastity said, working to not be oppressed anymore. And it says that weeping is not the answer to poverty, and the lazy man who hungry has no one to blame but himself. So basically, if you're hungry, you can't just be crying on something to eat. You have to go out and go find something to eat. You need to cook.
That's exactly right.
So basically, I feel that you're saying that you make yourself oppressed, and you can break the chain of making yourself to be oppressed, like by doing what you have to do, like school. If they said you can't go to school, go to school. You have to, do what they said you couldn't do and make it happen.
I have a question. This is kind of changing it, like to try to get on a different topic a little bit, but do y'all agree that the whole point of this oppression and all of these stories can all relate back to politics in a way? Like, it's all politics, because that's what everything is ran off in here. I mean, in America, it's politics. And if politics wasn't so, essential or whatever, could anybody be oppressed? You know what I'm saying? Like, could anybody be oppressed if it wasn't for politics? Like, if you weren't trying to get to the top in the first place, due to politics, would you be oppressed anyway?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, any problem that goes on in America, whether it's good or bad, well, I guess it wouldn't be a problem if it was good. But anything that's fortunate or unfortunate, it all stems from somewhere. And I agree with that. And I'm sure Paige has something to say to add on to that.
It's actually very interesting that you all said that it comes from somewhere else. I believe you all saw these slave narratives. And as you already know, of course, our ancestors were slaves. They weren't initially slaves, but when they got here, they were slaves. And it was a documentary on, different slave members who were still living. And they made different points about not necessarily being oppressed, but it relates to being oppressed. They said that the children, the light-skinned children usually worked in the house, and the dark-skinned children usually worked in the field. And they were taught to be, inferior. They were told that they weren't or would never be as much as the light-skinned, their counterparts. So, even from, the early 19th century, 18th century, we were told you're not as good as this person. You're not going to be as good as this person. You can't do it. And even one of the narrators in the movie, she said that there were 4 different levels of slaves. There was your regular field slave that was working in the fields. There was the one that tended to the horses. There was one that tended to the tools. And then there was one who worked in the house. And she said that you can never move up. You can never move up. Only way that you can get in the house is if you look closest to the white counterparts. And there's no way that you can't say that our mentality isn't the same. Even with our generation, we try to look the part. We try to look Eurocentric. We try to get the straight hair. That we get relaxers. We have, skin lightening creams. That's all part of being oppressed. And I think some people neglect to realize that.
I completely agree with you, because I feel like we were oppressed, African Americans, but I feel like more so nowadays we suffer from self-oppression. We feel like we don't deserve more, that we're not as good. And in my article, Who's Passing for Whom, Khalid Johnson, the colored social worker, he showed that he was a product of oppression. He treated the white people better than his own because society taught him that white people were better. And I feel like he didn't know differently. Like, if he felt like it was outside people who were oppressing him, maybe he would have changed. But he honestly thought that he was less than the white people.